Welcome back to another episode of the Capes and Tights podcast right here on capesandtights.com. We're here in the middle of Horror Week 2023 at Capes and Tights. This episode features Paul Eaton from Galactic Comics and Collectibles, a regular on the podcast who does our movie reviews with us, to review Killer Klowns from Outer Space from May 27th of 1988 by the Chiodo Brothers. We discussed how this movie affected us, the great things, the negative things, all that stuff, and gave it a score at the end. We also talked about horror movies in general, the horror industry in general, horror comics, horror books, all that stuff as well in this episode. And there's a little surprise discussion at the end. If you hold yourself to it and listen to the whole thing, there's a little surprise there for you as well, where we talk about something that Paul and I are doing. But yeah, this is a Killer Klowns from Outer Space, our movie review episode for Horror Week 2023. Find out more at Horror Week. It's capesandtights.com/horror week. But also like us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Blue Sky. Subscribe, rate, and review all those things over at Apple and Spotify and all your major podcasting platforms. But this is Killer Klowns from Outer Space movie review with Paul Eaton from Galactic Comics and Collectibles. Enjoy, everyone. I guess we're just going to leave this into welcome to the podcast, Paul. Welcome back. Actually, it's really weird. It's really weird because we recorded the last time we recorded a movie review. It was like a month ago, but the actual episode doesn't drop until the week that we're recording this, which is like Wednesday. It's just funny. It's like we literally are going to be talking again before your episode about Howard the Duck actually airs, but that will actually air the Wednesday we're recording this, which is the Wednesday prior to this episode coming out. So you get two Wednesdays in a row, Paul.
Oh baby,
because this is the middle of the week episode on Horror Week here at the podcast. We've had some pretty cool guests on this week so far with Jeremy Dauber talking horror, what scares us, really, horror books, horror movies, all that stuff. He's writing a book to come out about what scares us. We talked to Joseph Schmalke. Nice. You know that guy, right? You familiar with that?
I might know him. Name sounds familiar.
He writes some scary horror book type stuff. And then we got this episode. And then tomorrow's episode is with Adam Caesar. I actually had this book right here randomly, who wrote Clown in a Cornfield and Clown in a Cornfield 2 and the upcoming Clown in a Cornfield 3. He's also wrote Dead Mall.
Dead Mall. I haven't read Dead Mall yet. That's on my to-do list.
I think it's a great story. It's a great book. Nothing against Adam. Adam, we love you. David Stoll's art in there is phenomenal, in my opinion, just the way he does them all. He's the one that did the floor plan or like architectural floor plan for
Me You Love in the Dark.
Me You Love in the Dark, because he has a background in that. So he did the floor plan and architectural drawings for the mall of Dead Mall, which is pretty badass, so that they could figure out like when they tell the story where they go, what the next room is. And I never thought about that, honestly, until I started talking about it. I was like,
it makes perfect sense. You'd have to have a plan, because you can't just be like writing it and them stumbling along and then be like, oh wait, what was in this aisle, here? It makes perfect sense. But yeah, I never thought of it. I never would have thought of it for Me You Love in the Dark with this house.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is, and it does make me wonder, how many more things do they do that for? Is that a common trend?
I don't think it is. And I think what happens is people write themselves into a position where they're like, oh crap, we have to go X, Y, and Z. And that includes like a world. Twig, for an example, he goes on a journey. You have to map that journey out. And I bet Scotty did, so that people know, like, say like, sets
where
on a
they
movie
are.
Or a TV show. You watch The Office. You have to kind of like where the offices are compared to the other offices, because you can't point over here and then actually have the office be over there. And the same thing like Seinfeld, when they're like walking from Jerry's apartment to, because obviously that's a set,
right?
But when they walk to Kramer's, they have to be like, okay, Kramer's is across the hall, but actually his set is actually not across the hall, it's probably next to it. But they have to like map these things out. And I'm sure that some people write themselves into a panic because they don't know. They're like, oh
where
crap,
people
we
are
have
anymore.
to. Yes, yeah, exactly. So which
I'm sort of surprised Middle West didn't have like a full map of where they were going in that. That would have been kind of cool to open the trade up and have a big map of it.
Did they do an omnibus of that yet?
They did.
They did. I was like wondering if they put it in the omnibus.
We've sold out of it like over and over again.
But it's not in the omnibus.
It's an omnibus. It's not a big hardcover, but it's a really thick paperback.
Okay. Sometimes they add in the those things they add in somewhere or something like that. Like it'd be almost kind of cool if they did a hardcover. Like on the inside of a hardcover book, they have that. It's like obviously the hardcover part, and then they have that like the stronger, almost like cardstock piece of paper, and then the book starts. And that would be cool if on that it was like a simple map, not like an actual detailed map, but like a I don't know, topographical kind of map on the inside of the cover would be kind of cool.
Give you an idea.
Mhm.
Yeah. Even if it just had the like X on the pinpoints and like
Mhm.
the little lines of where they went. Yeah. Because
I
that book
wonder
has
if
a
like
lot of
Stephen
that
King
travel.
runs into this, talking about horror stuff here. I wonder if Stephen King
Mm.
runs into this at all, where like if you actually Google it, it's actually kind of hard because no one really has an actual, like they all mess with each other and they actually don't have a concrete reasoning behind this. Like, where is Derry? Where is Salem's Lot? Where is all these things in Stephen King's lore? And there's a map, but
Right.
then you look at someone else's map and it's like, well, they have something way up here in the
Intersecting.
county, and they have Derry here, and Derry's actually not in Maine; it's actually more like Newport. And then there's another one where like Salem's Lot's here, but actually it's over here, and it's weird. And in the movies for Salem Lot,
Mm.
it's like they keep on mentioning Bangor, but in the book they mention Portland. Like it's closer to Portland.
Interesting.
Anybody from not from Maine's gonna be like, I don't know what the hell you're talking
Yeah,
about.
they don't know
Like,
what any of it is
but like
anyways. They're just names
they
of
say
towns.
Bangor is 2 hours north of Portland, and so like they say, oh, we're gonna go to the movies in Bangor. And it's like if it was towards Portland, you wouldn't drive 2 hours to go to a movie. You'd go to Portland. So it was just kind of weird how they decided to change this.
We'd have to have a really good movie playing here.
I'm just wondering if Stephen King ever actually has that jotted down or he doesn't care.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Probably not, especially back then, with so much of his writing taking place in like in the 80s, and we
Mhm.
didn't have you couldn't do like there was no Google Map then. There wasn't anything to like look over, and I bet it's a lot easier these days if you're going to do that kind of stuff, especially set in a real world
Yeah.
where like it's all made up for Maine, but there's all these pinpoints in it.
Which I actually honestly hate the fact. I love Stephen King and his books are great. I hate the fact that everything's a fake town. Why didn't you just but they use real towns. That's the other part. It's like they
Right.
don't just use fake towns like Gotham or it's fake towns in borderlines or around. They mention Kittery, they mention Portsmouth, New Hampshire, they mention Portland, they mention Bangor. Like you're making fake towns but you're using real towns to it. It always confused me. Why can't you just call Derry, Maine, Bangor, Maine? Like I just don't
Right.
understand why you couldn't do that. But
Yeah,
whatever.
because so much of it takes place in Bangor that it's definitely
Yeah,
like feels like it's right here.
but that's, and if I ever a comic book in the future, which I'm hoping it one day I will, which will be based in Maine, and I'm going to use real towns, fake people,
Yeah.
maybe fake street names or things like that, just so people's like aren't like this is the house from whatever.
Right.
I would rather have it be like, but like the town of Warrington or Bangor or whatever should be. I don't know. It's just nice. If you're going to use Maine as your backdrop, you should use Maine as your towns. Like it just makes sense. But we're not here to talk about Stephen King and Maine and all that stuff. We're here to talk about.
Yeah. What exactly did Stephen King have to do with Killer Klowns?
What does he have a clue? He has a killer clown in one of his
He
movies.
does have a killer clown. I don't think it's the same clowns.
No, it's not. Did you see at Bangor Comic and Toy Con about when Art the Clown flipped off Pennywise? That was honestly awesome. It might have been the highlight of the entire weekend because it's just so like Maine for us. We're all like and Art the Clown is just like this grungy, R-rated clown, for example, or honestly unrated clown. That he just walks by Pennywise and gives him the finger. I was like, that's amazing. That's so amazing.
That was awesome.
But Killer Klowns from Outer Space is what we're here to talk about. This is this month's, I guess we're having two this month, movie review. And we're doing Killer Klowns from Outer Space. Funnily enough, it's a highly rated movie on like your Rotten
I
Tomatoes.
was surprised at that. I did a little research on that and was surprised at how much positive like reviews this movie has and everything. I love this as a childhood movie. Like I saw this when I was, I don't know, 7, 8, and it's the only like horror movie. It's one of the only horror movies I ever saw as a kid. But this is probably would be much closer into comedy than horror.
Yes, but it's a slasher movie. Okay, it's a slasher horror movie from 1988. Came out May 27th, 1988. I was just over 2 years old when this movie came out. But it doesn't take itself too seriously, if that makes any sense. So like it's comedy, but it's not like straight up comedy. It's also not straight up horror. It's one of those ones where it's like if you aren't into horror that much, it's like okay, I can get the funny jokes and the things in the almost making fun of itself in a sense that like every single one of us sees these outer space alien attacks kind of movies as these prototypical Area 51 aliens, right? Like that's just what you picture. And then you see a horror movie, you're like, okay, this is what the slasher and the horror villain looks like. And they kind of like put both of them on their heads. Like they both like turn upside down what you're looking at. And that's what I was impressive about this movie was like, it didn't fit one genre. It perfectly fit in couple. And it's not my favorite movie. It's not my favorite horror movie. It's not my favorite comedy movie. but it was good. It was definitely good, and I think it's something people should watch because it's also become a cult classic.
Yeah, this has a huge cult following. Well, I mean,
Mhm.
we went to Spirit Halloween this weekend, and they have an entire Killer Klowns from Outer Space like set up. They have the costumes. They have like an animatronic one. They have the weapons in the movie you can get. Like it's pretty impressive the staying power of this
Mhm.
movie when like I wonder what the guys the brothers that made this movie thought this was gonna like did they think this was gonna take off as a cult classic? It did
I think
pretty
so because
well
they
in
had a
theaters.
planned sequel. They did have a sequel that
Yeah,
was like talked about being made, and then it ended up
they're
flopping or
they're
failing. But
still talking about making a sequel to it
yeah, which
to this
which
day
is one of the things I
apparently.
wanted to bring up on this episode. Now you're talking about this, is that I'm actually somewhat surprised. Okay, the movie turns 25, turned 25 this year, right? No, turned 35 this year. 35 this
Right.
year.
Oh,
Turned
holy
35
crap.
years old this year. That they haven't tried a. Is this one of those movies that you really can't? Because then they're going to try to make it too funny or too graphic. It's like the movie has to stay where
Right.
it is. It's like it's honestly like we never want to. I never want to see a remake of Back to the Future. I wouldn't mind
Right.
a sequel of sorts, like Marty's Kids or Doc's Kids or something like that. I don't have a problem with that. If you did this movie again, would they try to use too much CGI and enough practical effects?
Right.
Are the practical effects bad enough that if you make a movie in 2025 that it's
It
you
might
know what I mean?
look
Like I don't know
really
if it's
because
possible
you
to
had
redo this movie.
right, you had the filming technology back then is what it is that helped aid in hiding the practical effects part of it, where the practical effects don't look bad in this movie. Like
I
they're,
love them, honestly.
yeah, oh, me too. And what they are is supposed to be goofy, so it's
Yeah.
okay that they're goofy looking. But yeah, if you're doing this in like, because I watched the DVD version release
Yeah.
of this, so it was fairly clean. But you know, if you did this now, I feel like it might be too clean,
Mm-hmm.
or the clowns would, if you made them still having the same like costumes and stuff from then, might just not look good in a high definition
Yeah.
filming. Like they
And
might look stupid.
I really enjoyed it, the new It, the remake of It in
Yeah,
2017. I really enjoyed it, and they did make him. But here's the deal: they made him creepier as a clown, like more gory, more
yeah.
edgy as a clown. Whereas like one of the scary things about Tim Curry's clown from the 1990s, it miniseries on TV was the fact that he looked like I honestly looked like he could walk into to someone's birthday party
You
and
look
be a
like any
clown.
other clown.
And then he had the fierce teeth and he had the extra stuff, but like the fact that he just looked like any other clown. The Pennywise from the modern It is creepier and dirtier and grungier, and they made
Yeah.
it. So I feel like they'd
The
almost do this with these clowns, is they'd make
the
them.
current Pennywise would terrify anybody, even
Yes,
if you
if
don't
he showed up at a
have a
party,
fear
you'd
of
be like,
clowns.
that is a murderer. Like
Yeah.
that's a bad thing. Whereas these clowns are kind of like they've got the edginess to them, but I feel like they'd almost make them worse. They'd almost make them like grunge. Like people just looked at the clowns and like, oh, clowns in this movie,
Right.
and then they left it at that. Like you just
Yeah,
took
they're
it as
like,
they were
why are
clowns.
these, stupid looking clowns wandering around the
Like
town?
almost like they were wearing masks. And people are like, why are these people wearing masks?
Yeah.
When which
Yeah,
which
and
is
that's what
funny. I
they
wrote these notes down. Like obviously people are just like the police officer in the
oh
guys
my
stop
God.
fooling around with the clowns. I'm like, okay, after the fifth person who calls about something, if you don't do something at that point, it
Yeah.
is your own fault that things are shit's
Yeah.
happening.
And this guy's got like the like you're not gonna pull one over on me. Yeah,
For
he's
everybody.
so
Everybody
so
in the town's
ridiculous.
pulling one over him.
It was funny because I couldn't figure out why I knew him now watching it because he's one of the only like
Mhm.
bigger actors in this movie, and I
Yeah.
realized I looked him up. So he was the mayor in Dirty Harry, which I love Dirty
Yep.
Harry, and I'm like, okay, because his voice is like super familiar. And then apparently the old guy that's like the first one to get killed is
Yes.
a famous like westerns actor from back in the day,
Mhm.
but his acting was like ridiculously goofy over the top.
Yes.
Um,
And then
I don't know. It's a fun movie. I
it's a
feel
fun
like
movie. So
anybody that
I'm glad we did it for this thing. We could talk back and forth. Like we had talked about, like, oh, let's do well. First of all, we've had conversations off recording, which was, do we ever review movies that are really good? Because it's kind of hard
right,
to talk about. Because all we're gonna do is like praise them, and it's kind of hard to critique them as much. Well, the one thing I didn't like about this movie is, and so on and so forth. It's just way more fun to review movies that are crap because you can like crap
yeah,
all over them and have fun and joke about them and not take them too seriously. Like we're not here to like
yeah.
be professional movie critics. But this one kind of sat in the middle for me because it wasn't bad, but it wasn't also like
This
award
is
winning.
this is a movie that like if somebody hadn't seen as like a goofy sci-fi movie fan or a B-rated movie fan, or oh, I enjoy horror, I would absolutely recommend this movie.
Yeah.
Like, if somebody tells me that they aren't really into any of that genre, I probably would not say you got to see Killer Klowns from Outer Space. But if you like your goofy, cheesy movies, this is one of the best, I would think.
Exactly.
I feel like the acting in this movie, besides the old guy being over the top, and the two brothers, like everything is downplayed, but the acting is not necessarily bad.
No,
you have
not at all.
like two idiot brothers in the ice cream truck driving around. Like, overall, it's really not bad, and it kind of surprised me that none of these actors really did anything else.
I mean, at the time, was a movie made money. It did well, but at the time, it was like if you make a stupid movie, people might not take you as serious. So, like, honestly, we talked about this for last week's episode with Howard the Duck. Some of those actors in that movie, the movie was so badly received that some of those actors felt careers. But it said it. You ruined my career. I mean, honestly, not long after Howard the Duck came out, Tim Robbins starred in freaking Shawshank Redemption, which is one of my favorite movies of all time, if not my favorite movie of all time. And so it
started his career.
Yeah, so it's like, it's one of those things that whatever. But if you don't know Killer Klowns from Outer Space, let me give you. So it's teenagers. Is Mike and Debbie see a comet crash outside of Sleepy Town. So they go to investigate it, and then they find there's a pack of murderous aliens. But so the thing, I was explaining this to someone, I forget who it was this weekend, and I was laughing because the fact that Killer Klowns from Outer Space, it like takes these alien figures that you would normally see and put them in, make them clowns. And then they also take that, like, their spaceship is basically a circus tent in a sense. Like, it lands and it's a circus tent in the middle of nowhere. And I love the old dude who's like, "Oh, look at a circus tent. I haven't been in a while." Like, yeah, because there's a random circus tent
in the middle of nowhere in your backyard, in your property. All of a sudden, a circus tent's here.
That's Garrett when he's like that age. I wonder what this is here for. Let me go check it out. Right. No, and they see the circus clowns. They're murderous. They use these. Like, they use popcorn as weapons. They use cotton candy as like.
Oh my god! Every goofy thing. Yeah. So the cotton candy cocoon thing, like, one of them that gets me in this movie is how they're going around like there's no one left in this town. Like, they filled this ship up, like, and no one's like, "Oh my god, they've killed everyone." They're just like, "Oh man, yeah, kind of sucks. These clowns showing up." Like, there's no.
Was that part of the comedy? Is that part of the idea that, like, it's you can't take it too seriously?
Like, Mike was really worried about his guy he knew from school or whatever, because that's the first one he finds when he tears the cotton candy down. It's like, oh my god. So he keeps going on about that one guy, but he's not worried about the fact of, like, everyone else in town.
Well, it also
the entire town is cleaned out.
It's gone.
No one left.
Well, and he tries to warn
shit.
He tries to warn the authorities, and people are all like, what? It's a prank, and then everybody's missing. So, like, at some point, someone has to go, "You're all morons," because we tried to tell you about this. And, like, the cop, and spoilers, the cop eventually, the one that doesn't listen, eventually dies, and you're like, well, screw you, man. Like, that's your own goddamn fault. Like, it's not my problem.
You feel like he has it coming. Yeah.
Yes.
That was a scene as a kid. It is creepy with the clown using him as a puppet.
Yes. Yes. That was like really, that was one of the horrific parts. And then there's the part where they use popcorn as a weapon, is the funny parts. You know what I mean? Like, there's the both sides.
Well, it's like the clown comes out there after they shoot him with the popcorn guns, and you're like, I don't get, like, why they shot him with popcorn. The popcorn's all stuck to him. And then you see the clown come out and start making the balloon dog. Yeah. And then the dog's sniffing out the popcorn. So you're like, oh, okay, I get it now.
It's just, it's so funny how they don't.
Stuff happening in town with the clowns are great. Like, they're hilarious.
And the clown, like I said, the makeup, the practical effects are fun. It's just different. They're obviously not to be taken too seriously. But the idea that we always picture clowns coming, or aliens coming to Earth in this one way, and they're like, well, why wouldn't they be clowns? Why wouldn't a random alien race be, just sticks with arms or something? Why wouldn't there, like, why do we always picture them as humanoids? And this fact that they're clowns is funny, and the fact that they used all those extra things. And I also didn't know, when I saw the cocoon things, I'm like, are they doing more like, have you ever seen Invasion of the Body Snatchers? Probably not.
No.
Not really, that's basically like honestly, it's like Secret Invasion. Okay. That's the easiest explanation I have for you, is that they kidnap people's bodies, they make new ones and replace the bodies with new ones with no emotions at all. No love, no hate, no ever. And they're trying to basically take over the world with these new bodies to have, like, no ability really to do anything wrong, so they just live. And that's what I thought we were doing on this thing with Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where they're like kidnapping these things and putting them in some sort of cocoon to make them into clowns. No. And then I see the guy stick the straw in the thing and start drinking. I'm like, oh, they're eating them. That's even that's gross.
That's the one, like, oh, they're just here for a bite to eat. Like them. They just stop by, and that's exactly what they are.
I was like, oh god, is it sweet like cotton candy? Is it strawberry cotton candy? Is
probably
it
eventually, because you see the I think that one's name is Fatso, because they actually have names now.
Yes.
I think that one's Fatso, and he's down there like poking the one that like looks the best and the tastiest or whatever. Yeah, it is gross, and sucking the blood out of it. Like there's, I don't know, the comedy effects in the movie are good. The puppet things are scary. When the girl in the shower gets stuck in the bathroom with all of the new formed clowns there, that's like terrifying in and of itself too. Because apparently they grow from the popcorn. You get that idea when the other one comes along and dumps it in the dumpster, and then the kid taking the garbage out, like the fast food joint, gets pulled in. It
makes you laugh. It's like if no one knew what we were talking, we just started talking about this movie and then told you what the movie was at the end, you'd be like, what the hell is this movie you're talking about? It just doesn't seem like a movie that would ever. It literally was made for $1.8 million, and over the years, because obviously it's been re-released in different options and they've done things and they put it in for like Halloween and stuff like that, it's made $43 million. So you're saying that's a great return on your investment for a movie like this. And you never think to my mind that this movie made over $40 million in the.
And then you got to wonder, like, with these, costumes, with these toys, Funko Pops, these Killer Klowns has gone all over the place. How much is this franchise now worth?
Yeah.
Like,
I was also like wondering why you wouldn't remake it.
I guess there's a video game, like it must have been made back in the day, like a computer only game that they tried to make a Killer Klowns sequel to video game, which I kind of want to play now.
Exactly. Did you know that this movie? So they said that this movie made $43 million in the box office. Last week's review made $38 million in the box office. So this movie actually made $5 million more than Harvard the Duck, and this movie was made for $1.8 million. And was that movie?
Well done, guys. Well done. You did better than George Lucas.
George Lucas made or whatever it was. They made it for $30 million.
Yeah.
This movie was made for
1.8. They made like 35.
Yeah, and the practical effects almost were better in this movie than it was in that movie, and that's largely to the Chiodo Brothers. So Charles and Stephen Chiodo, they wrote the movie together, and then Stephen directed it. And the Chiodo Brothers are known for special effects and things like they made movies. The special effects are done something in that vein for Critters, Ernest Scared Stupid, Elf. They did all the claymation stuff in Elf.
Oh, nice!
And they were also
I did not know that. That's awesome.
They were part of the special effects and practical effects team for the Team America movie made by the guys who made South Park.
Oh, yeah.
And so and there's a bunch of other ones that can go on and on. So they've had a successful like behind the scenes special effects, practical effects.
That whole thing must have been pretty easy for them to do this movie then, with that kind of background and already being familiar with all of it. Because all of that stuff is great. The CGI in it's 80s CGI. Yes. It is what it is.
And there's not much. It's like they almost like they have to use it for certain things, but other than that, it's not like
when they shoot the cotton candy gun thing, and when the clowns explode, because when you kill a clown, they like explode. I don't understand. They spin into a giant tornado of green stuff and they blow up.
I didn't mention this yet, but I probably should because it won awards. There's a animated movie called Marcel and the Shell on Marcel the Shell with the shoes on. It's a little shell that walks around. It's like a silent movie, animated movie. They did stop motion for that too, which is pretty. It won awards, so it probably should be mentioned.
Yeah.
What else was there? There was also the Mr. Potato Head show. Ernest Scared Stupid, Critters, Monsters, UHF with Weird Al from 1998.
It's really surprising that these guys did so much of this stuff, and they had such a successful turnaround in this movie, but then they haven't done another movie independently by themselves. Maybe it was just too much work. Maybe they were like, you know what, this is
because
I can't imagine.
We
can't imagine how much goes into that. Like
we talked to Damien Leone and David Howard Thornton from Terrifier at the Bangor Comic Toy Con, and one of the things they mentioned was someone asked, "Would you?" Damien Leone, who wrote the movie, directed the movie, produced the movie, and did the special effects for the movie, the first two movies, is would you call yourself a director, a writer, a special effects makeup artist? What would you consider yourself? And he goes, I like the overall encompassing title, filmmaker. I said that makes sense. I like that. Our friend Joseph Schmalke likes to go by comic book storyteller. He's an artist and a writer, but like he's a storyteller. He just uses both mediums to tell stories, and so on and so forth. He goes, but the funny thing is, in Terrifier 3, which comes out in 2024, is they have a higher budget because now it got picked up by a bigger studio and so on and so forth. And he's actually hired in a special effects and makeup people. So like they're still
he's not off the plate.
And so he says as long as they're equal to what he wanted to do, he's like, I would then consider myself now as the writer and director. And so maybe the Chiodo Brothers did the opposite, where they're like, I don't know about the director. I don't want to run the whole thing. I just want to sit there. I want to make my stuff in the back studio. I don't want to actually
that's the part they enjoyed the most.
Correct. Damien Leone wants to tell his story, and he can say, someone else is capable of doing this practical effects. I'll just do the story part. And that's maybe they did the opposite thought process on that. And maybe it is. The funny thing
makes
is,
sense. I mean, I can't imagine. It's got to be a lot of work, and you're dealing with the actors that you're hiring, and you're dealing with, I mean, they must have had a pile of stuff involved in this, the cities you're filming in or the sets you're using. I mean, all of it to go through. You get done with it and be like, you know what? I don't really want to do that again. Like, I can totally see that.
The funny thing about the Chiodo Brothers, ready for this, is in early 2000s, so I was in high school. So 2000 to 2004 is when I was at, or 2001 to 2004, I was at Bangor High School in Bangor, Maine. And I listened to a lot of like Screamo and post-hardcore and all those kind of bands when I was growing up. There's a band from Michigan called Chiodos. Okay. And I had no idea, no connection, no worries at all about why this band was named Chiodos. The band's name is, it's a cool sounding name, whatever. It actually does. If you go online, look it up. They had their name was called the Lighthearted Carpet Knights was the original name before they changed it to the Chiodo Bros. And then the band, in tribute to filmmakers Stephen and Charles and Edward Chiodos, responsible for Killer Klowns. They ended up changing it and dropping the and the brothers to just Chiodos. But the name of the band is actually named after the people who made this movie, which I thought was hilarious. And if I had like the copyrights to that music, I would use it as the opening music for this episode. But I don't have, like, we obviously can't do that. But like, I thought it was kind of funny that this is completely unrelated, but they're, years later.
That's like how they actually have their own song made for this movie, which is completely ridiculous and fantastic.
I just watched that. The Retaliators. It's a movie that came out 2018, 19, 20, somewhere around there, I believe. And it's a 5-finger death punch is in the movie. And the singer, so is the singer of Papa Roach. And so there's a song for it that's like all of them together. It's this kind of funny that it's like they wanted to make a movie and they had a friend who made it. Oh, let's make a horror movie together, and I want to be in it. It's cheesy, but it's actually pretty good. It's not that bad. The Retaliators, but yeah. So like, it's funny how these guys made this movie and they never made anything else. And they're still alive. Obviously, they just did the stuff on stop motion for Marcel. They could be involved in a reboot or a continuation or something with it, but you have to almost make the movie like they made it in 1980s. You can't. Yeah. It wouldn't be taken as.
I'd almost say you'd want to like determine the difference between what 1.8 million was in the 80s to what it is now.
Make that your budget.
This is still our budget. Like, okay, 1.8 million in the 80s is now worth 3.5 million today or whatever, and say that's our budget.
It's probably worth like 30 million now. Yeah. With inflation nowadays.
That's awful. But stick to that.
But even the rest of around it, like, hire good actors, get good cameras, get good lighting, get all that stuff. But like, even if you use CGI for the entire thing, make your CGI look like the clowns from the 80s movie.
Yeah.
I think that would make people happy.
You definitely do not want to change the latexy weird.
I bet those things aren't in good condition right now.
Oh God, those are probably dissolved and look terrifying. They probably look scarier now than they did then. Yeah, because you want that. You want the weird like facial movements and the lips and they did have like the pointy teeth under them. Like, these clowns are pretty terrifying once you got a good look at them. But when you just see them like waddling around, and that's the other thing, they move like this weird like lumbering waddle.
But they have to, because they're like in these massive suits.
Yeah.
These suits. Yeah. It's not like, I don't think they probably wrote it into the script to walk that way.
No, it's probably the only way and they have like huge feet. I mean, they're big, goofy clowns. So like, it was funny, them walking out of the woods into that, like, into town. You're surprised that they made it into town in the same night. Like the pace they're going, but then they have like the little clown car and they all pile out of it and stuff. Like it's funny to look at them and they only have like 3 fingers, and to think that they managed to come up with all this technology we can't, and like they made space. How they accomplish space flight with whatever
how do they accomplish
these
space
guys
flight in a friggin' circus tent?
in a circus tent.
We did it. We've been doing it all wrong, Paul. We can go to Mars. It just has to be in a circus tent. Why haven't we done this yet? Learn a lot from the Chiodo Brothers.
It bores a hole, like a giant top, into like whatever surface it lands in, apparently. Yeah. And whatever the hell the thing is, when they're running around inside the spaceship they in that one room that is just like it goes down forever, and there's this giant like electric globe shooting lightning off everywhere. Like that's what must be their power source or something. Yeah, how this alien like group came up with this technology while only having 3 fingers and not being able to like move more than a waddle around.
Yes.
Pretty impressive.
It's funny with these things. Like you could have gone. The best part about this movie is the fact that horror movies can either be taken far too seriously to the point where like you can't sleep, and so horror anything, honestly, horror books, horror comics. We've talked about Nailbiter and Legacy of Violence and some of these books that have come out over the past few years that make you literally go, oh my God, this is crazy. I mean, I just read a book called Ankle Snatcher from Grady Hendrix that was about thing living under the bed. And then my son woke up in the morning and his feet were under the bed. I was like, holy shit. But no, so like there's things that make you scared. And then this movie is like, then there's like Scary Movie, the actual like movie, Scary Movie, not like Scary Movie, which is like stupid for like horror movie. Like it's like one of those things that's comedy that has like some deaths in it. And they did some sort of perfect balance in Killer Klowns from Outer Space where it's like they didn't take themselves too seriously, but they also didn't go too far into the slapstick comedy. You know, some horror movies can be so gory and gross to make you like just grossed out, and they didn't have that aspect in this. It's a little bit of like everything, and I think that's what makes this movie like one of those like approachable movies for a lot of people. And the clown part of it, clowns are scary. You know what I mean? Like it's not like it was probably creepy. They could have done anything else. They could have been like, oh, we're gonna make it, you know, carnival barkers and make them the aliens. But they made clowns because there was a reason, because clowns are scary to a lot of people in the first place. They're scared of clowns in the first place. What I do appreciate about this movie is the fact that they did this like, nope, we're going to make it a tent. We're going to make these guys come and just look for sustenance and like, you know, whatever. They could have made it more like this tent randomly appeared. They started selling tickets. You didn't know they were bad until some stuff started bad happening. Like you could have done this more like creepy, like, you know, like inconspicuous kind of like taking over instead of just like literally kidnapping and murdering people.
Yeah, instead these things like don't have that kind of like intellect. It seems like they just like kind of
if you made it like
do what they do
or Secret Invasion or I just mentioned Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where people didn't know what was going on at all.
Right.
There's one person who's like, something's not right here, and then you start investigating and figure out. They could have made these clowns where it's like, you never get out of character, do you? And it's like, oh no, I'm a method actor, and they just play as a clown this whole time, and then you come to find out they're really evil people. And they just didn't do that. They just were like, no, we're just gonna come here and make these clowns like eat people in a sense.
Yeah, goofy alien clowns that eat people. Like all of the scenes of them like catching people and doing things are all goofy. You know, like the little guy on the little tricycle and the biker gang coming after him, and then him punching his head off the trash can.
So I did for Horror Week, I believe it came out on Monday of Horror Week. So I can actually, if people want to go to capesandtights.com/horror week, they can see the entire list. But I did a list of like my 30 favorite horror movies. Okay. This is not on there. I'll tell you that right now.
You didn't make the
list.
Good. Oh.
It's good, but it's not that good. No. So the best part about it is
30 horror movies.
Out of all the horror movies, there's a certain ones where I'm like, you know, like Christmas movies are those ones that Taylor and I were talking about, my wife Taylor, we're talking about like, these are the movies you have to watch every year. We have to watch Elf. We have to watch Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And you like watching them every year. I feel like Halloween time, there's a certain demographic of people, a small percentage of people who are like, we got to watch Halloween every year, like the actual Halloween movie or Psycho or whatever. And there's a portion like me, whereas I want to watch a lot of new stuff. Not the saying that I won't watch the older stuff or stuff, not new stuff per se, like that came out recently, but stuff I haven't seen.
You don't want to rewatch it.
I'm not really rewatching.
That's the thing with horror, I feel like, is if you have like the sentimental attachment because you grew up watching horror, I feel like a lot of the horror fans appreciate rewatching things. If you're in it for like the scare right here and now, you're not really going to relive that.
No, because you know that,
I've watched The Shining like probably 4 times.
Yeah, and the thing is one that you're not a big horror fan, but that's your favorite horror movie, I would say.
Yeah, and it's
Okay.
it's got
Which is
like
fine
the
because
creepy
honestly, it's number
factor.
3 on my list. It's number 3 on my list.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is so the right above that is Psycho, 1960. Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho is number 1.
Yes, I want to
Number
watch
2,
that.
number 2 is Rosemary's Baby. It's one of my favorite movies. It's great, and that was in 1968 and 1960, and then obviously 1980 for the Shining. But I guess my point is out of the top 5 movies that are on my list, which include I said The Shining, and then number 4 is Halloween, and number 5 is Jaws. Jaws is the only one out of that I'm like, I could just throw Jaws on and watch it.
Yeah.
And love it.
We actually watch Jaws every summer, my wife and I. That's like a summer tradition.
But I'm just trying to think of like
right when you're into the feeling of like going to the beach all the time and everything, we have to watch Jaws.
I'm just trying to go through this. I'm going through this list. I'm not going to list them all off because you should check it out. Everybody should check it out. But like out of my horror movies that are on this thing, there's only, like I mentioned, Jaws. Okay. Let's see here. Jaws. We're still on one. We're still on one movie out of the top 30 that I'm like, yeah, just throw it on and we'll watch it.
Just rewatch it.
Okay.
Jaws
one movie out of the top 30 movies, Paul, that I think they're great horror movies and I think everybody should watch them. And I'm not saying I wouldn't rewatch them. I will definitely rewatch all of them over again. One of them are the ones that's like, okay, let's rewatch this. This falls in the category of like, you could make this your annual October.
Oh God, yeah. I usually watch this movie every year to 2 years. I watch Killer Klowns.
You could put this in. You're like, okay, I have these movies. And again, Halloween's on that list. And I guess if you're into like watching 1 or 2 horror movies around Halloween, Halloween would make that list, in my opinion, because it's the best of those early, like mid 80s, early 70s, early 70s slasher movies with that. Yeah. So I put it on there because it's a good movie and that people do like it. A Nightmare on Elm Street. I am not a huge Nightmare on Elm Street fan, but I understand why people like it. And the Friday the 13th of lore is fun with Jason, but like pick number 1's okay, number 2 or 3 are good, but after that it's like literally they send him to space at one point and into the future.
Right.
Like he literally it's ridiculous. They cryogenically freeze him and send him 500 or 400 years in the future. And the
science fiction part of it becomes ridiculous.
Like, obliterate this person, incinerate this person. If he's, it's so funny. Right. Like they've gone these Halloween movies and these Friday the 13th movies to a point now where it's like, you know, at the beginning it was almost somewhat believable, like this could be based on a true story. To now they're like lightning bolts reanimating bodies and things like that. But my point is that there's a few of those classic horror movies where like I gotta watch these every year and really enjoy it. And because of the fact that they're not as enjoyable to watch for most people, most of the demographic out there,
right?
To watch over again because you know how it goes. There's just you know where the jump scares are. You know.
Yeah, usually once you lose that, I feel like that's kind of your horror. Your big horror part is that jump scare and that on the edge of your seat, biting your fingernail feeling. And if you've seen it once, you don't really have that again.
But this adds that, like I think that puts it in as a list. And I think honestly, probably like there's probably from movie number 31 to 50. If I was to do it that high, there's probably a bunch more in that are into the rewatchable category. And that's where our friends over at the Friends from Work podcast have the idea that what's a good Marvel movie versus what's a rewatchable Marvel movie. Like there's a bunch of rewatchable Marvel movies that are not even in their top 10 or top 15 movies. It's just those are the ones that are like, that's a classic movie you can watch over again. Ant-Man. Like you just put it on, enjoy it because it's fun. Comedy. It's got the funness to it. It's like, it's, you know, Paul Rudd's great. Guardians of the Galaxy, those kind of movies.
God, I love the Guardians movies.
But like, those movies people will watch as a rewatchable. And so this would be categorized, in my opinion, as it's got scariness in it. There's jump scares, there's things like that. There's comedy in it, but it's a rewatchable horror movie, in my opinion. It's a much rewatchable horror movie. And I think that falls in the category. And that's actually, I'm gonna write that down because that's this year's horror week is all planned out. But I'm gonna write down for next year's horror week. We'll probably do a top 10 most rewatchable horror movies.
There we go. Nice. Mm-hmm. It's funny. So I saw The Shining for the first time. I saw it as an adult on the big screen in the theater for the Stephen King WKIT like radio giveaway broadcast. They do this thing where you can't buy tickets to it. It's you have to win them.
They're doing Pet Sematary this year.
Yes, which I would also love to see on the big screen. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah.
But that was the first time I saw The Shining, and I didn't know what necessarily to expect, and I could not. Like, by the time it got going, I was up on the edge of my seat. And I think because of that experience of seeing it for the first time, I rewatched The Shining. And my wife ended up really liking it. When I was telling her about it, then we watched it. She really liked it. So that's one we go back to every few years. I feel like for Halloween we
And there's
put on
more
The
to that
Shining.
story because I feel like one of the problems we have. So there's problems with every genre, really, but like action movies and drama movies, for an example, I feel like have less over the top either side of it, if that makes any sense. Like action
Yeah,
movies, there are some Michael Bay movies where it's like, okay, he just does explosions for explosions. But
yeah,
most action movies, it's like there's only a certain amount of action you can put in a movie that makes it watchable. And so like a good action movie is just a good action movie. There's not many. I think there's comedies where there's like, okay, we were just tried for people laughing. There's no story here.
yeah.
You're literally just telling jokes, or you're not funny at all. Like this is not even funny. I don't even understand why you're doing this. In horror, is the same thing. You're like almost trying to like make people puke and scare them so they
Right.
can't watch they can't go to bed at night. And then there's the ones that are just like creepy. They're just like
Yeah.
one of those weird things. It's like they're trying to do something sort of obscure thing in the horror genre that's not really
I
landing.
would rather have that creepy, like
Yes.
it sits in with you feeling. Like when I first saw The Sixth Sense, I
Yes.
saw The Sixth Sense in theaters as whatever I was, a teenager, I guess, or preteen, somewhere in
Yeah.
there. And I had to go see that movie, and that one like definitely creeped me out for a long time because they use those things in real life, like those weird, like, oh, I have a
Yes.
chill, and that means there's a ghost present with you, and all those things that stuff like that definitely lasted in my mind for a long time.
And that's
Um,
I think that's part of what I'm trying to say. Like one of the things you know this, and people probably know this now on the podcast. This is probably the third time I've said it this week on these episodes. Is I am a what scares me the most is what could be potentially real, even though I know
yeah,
it's fake. Even the best part about it is too many people like I can't watch that movie. It gives me, I can't get in cars after this. I'm like, you do realize all these freaking movies are fake. You have to have a line where it might
yeah,
initially scare you, like if you read a book about ankle snatching and then go to bed. Obviously,
right,
you're bound and determined to have some sort of
Creep,
nightmares or
creeping
have
you
trouble
out, yeah,
sleeping. But like 3 weeks from now, it shouldn't bother you anymore. Knowing this is a
right,
freaking fiction book or movie, and it shouldn't be something that you like hold on to for the rest of your life. Have the ability to say this is fake, this is real. But I like the idea when you're watching the movie. I've always said this about Paranormal Activity. Paranormal Activity, first of all, number one, it was made excellently because it was made with almost no money. And that to me
yeah,
is a lot. Like, it was really well made, really good story with no money, just adds that whole aspect to it. But up until they Hollywoodized it towards the end of the movie, spoilers, the movie was like, oh my God, this is actual people's security camera footage. This actually happened in someone's house. This is freaking crazy. And at the very
right,
end of the movie, again, spoilers, if anybody wants to watch the movie, it came out freaking 20 years ago. They had this beast kind of looking thing jump at the camera. And I'm like, okay, you lost me there because at that point, now I know it's not real. And
yeah,
whereas up until that point, things move, things fell off the shelf, they saw mists, all the stuff that's like, okay, it can be explained away, but it could be real. It was what I love about horror movies that make you jump and make you think. Those are the kind of good ones. The ones that make you go, oh, I'm gonna. And Terrifier is one of the exceptions in my opinion, because I do like both movies. Is like they just gore you out to gore you out. Let's cut someone in half because we can cut someone in half. You don't have to
right.
kill someone that way. You could just kill someone and it's still scary. You know what I mean? Texas Chainsaw Massacre, all those movies, they just killed people. It's not like they cut someone's boob off. You know what I mean? Like, let's try to
Yeah,
gross
make
you
it
out and try to
as
freak you out.
gruesomely gross as
Yes.
possible.
And this movie, again, this has this like scariness to it in Killer Klowns, but not to the
I
point
think
where
that
you're like,
was
I gotta look away.
right.
Do you know what I
That's
mean?
what
It
got
also
me
doesn't have comedy
as
that makes it not scary, if that makes any sense.
a teenager watching Scream, and where I
Ugh.
wasn't a big horror person. I saw Scream at a sleepover for a buddy of mine's birthday. He had a bunch of us over at his place. We all hung out, and that was the perfect setting to watch Scream because here
It's
we are, a bunch of teenagers, and here's a bunch of teenagers being murdered by something that is very real. Like, I mean, this was
yes.
obviously just a guy in a suit, and that had a super creep factor to it because like this could be happening to us right now. Like, here's this group of us in this house together, and that's basically what the whole movie was. So I always liked Scream as having that true real life. You could just have these two high school kids kind of go nuts and start killing the town.
Okay, so I changed my statement earlier about one in my top 30. I'm going to put two in there because I think the first Scream movie could be in that, because even though and it has to be one of those things that you might want to watch a couple years apart, so you kind of forget. You kind of like go,
Yeah,
I think I know who the
I
killer is, but I can't remember who the killer is.
I
But
think that's a
Scream is
big
one of the
thing with the horror.
franchises, in my opinion, that's done almost well for all of the movies. And that's because they from the beginning, or obviously not from the beginning, from movie 2, they're like, no, someone just has to be wearing the mask.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Someone just has to, it doesn't have to be
you could continue
person.
having this copycatting of it where
Yes.
Jason is Jason and therefore it gets ridiculous.
And Michael Myers is Michael Myers. And it's like those kind of movies, it's like, okay, obviously Freddy from Nightmare on Elm Street is
but not human
from hell. He's not human.
Right.
So that's okay.
Yeah,
but
so
like
that immediately takes that out.
You know, Michael Myers could have had a kid and the kid took over, or some sort of person he took under his arm, and then Michael Myers dies, but then all of a sudden out of nowhere, bam, someone else is wearing the Michael Myers mask. And same thing in Jason. Jason could have had someone else from the camp that you didn't know about. Someone else died before he died.
They just kept doing it.
Yes, and they just kept. Scream was one of those ones that they continue. They could make Scream movies forever because someone just has to be wearing the Ghostface mask to make it a realistic thing. And the fact that Michael Myers in Halloween grabbed a mask out of a store, and B, same as Scream. Scream's mask is just a mask. It's not like
it was everywhere. It was all
honestly. Jason's the same thing. Jason, he in movie 3, he takes the mask from someone else he kills in the movie and puts it on, and then from Jason 3 up until Jason 27, he's been wearing that mask. With the caveat that he did not wear the exact same mask for the entire Jason X movie when he went to space. They made this like futuristic like.
Well, when you space travel as a serial killer, you have to change it up.
Well, I guess so. Here's my little shameless plug here, right? We got
here we go.
We got Legacy of Violence here. Cullen Bunn, you should read A Legacy of Violence Volume 1, available at Mad Cave Studios. You can get it at your local comic book shop, including Galactic Comics and Collectibles in downtown or outside of downtown Bangor, Maine.
And Galactic Comics and Collectibles.com.
Yes, and this is Volume 2, which is just released over at Mad Cave, which collects the next 4 issues from Cullen Bunn. But on the back of the volume, a nice little surprise there. We got a little pull quote from Capes and Tights. I know that who wrote it. But I wanted to read this not because I'm trying to shameless plug on this, but I want to read what it says. And this is kind of the epitome of what I think horror stuff should be. And I think that's why. So it says, A Legacy of Violence sits right in that sweet spot of what we love most about independent comics and horror movies and horror stuff. A wonderful story that could be based on true events, but veers slightly into the unbelievable. And that was where I think that most horror movies, that's not this movie. So we kind of got on a tangent off just talking about horror movies.
Right. Yeah. We went off topic
because honestly,
I mean, you don't know that we have started having some, belief in alien life and technology being out there. So who's to say that there isn't killer clowns from outer space?
Here's my,
are you ready for the takeover when they come?
My groundbreaking thought is, I honestly think if we have any other living beings out there in this entire kind of vast space that we have out there, it's nothing we've seen before. If that makes any sense. Like you cannot make a movie about aliens in outer space because we don't know what they look like. And I feel like nothing that we have on Earth is going to resemble what we see. If that makes any sense to anybody at all. Because
you have the people preparing for zombie apocalypse. I, meantime, will be using nothing but clown targets from now on to make sure I can shoot them in the nose.
Well, let's be honest, Paul. It's way more likely
for when the clowns come, because they're coming. Based on this movie, I think it's 100% like a reality takeover.
I'll tell you right now.
Going to run into it.
As a huge Walking Dead fan, right?
Right.
Huge Walking Dead fan. I am telling you right now, it's more likely that clowns from outer space come to Earth than the bodies reanimate. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's fair.
There's more likely because it's more likely there's actually something, an infinite number of worlds that are out there, that there is a world just full of clowns. There's a world full of ducks. There's all that. There's so many more possibilities for that than actually scientifically proven.
So here we go.
Someone dies, they die. There's no coming back.
As we're way off topic in this horror tangent, anyways.
Well, we got kind of on the same.
Yeah, we're kind of going on. So sci-fi horror movies that creep us the hell out. Alien, of course, is like Alien. But I did not even know what I was watching. Okay. I had a neighbor that used to hook me up with movies a lot. Like when I was, I don't know, I must have been 18, 19, something like that. He'd be like, you got to watch this. So I watched Event Horizon, not knowing what I was watching. Like, okay, it starts, and I'm like, it's a sci-fi movie. Great. I love sci-fi movies. Holy shit, is that terrifying.
Yes.
And the idea that as we are messing with different space technology and we're messing with like studying black holes and with all that you could create something that opened a dimensional portal style thing, and that hell is real, and that this ship went to hell and back out and takes it with it, is like, it's not like a realistic, but at the same time, it's not unrealistic. You know what I mean? Like, in
Yeah.
that movie, talk about your movies that creep you out. That movie creeped me out maybe more than any other one I ever saw. That thing sat with me, and the way it ends is just like, good God. Like, I have had a hard time watching Jurassic Park because of that actor now.
Yeah.
Like, I just constantly see him as this creepy creator of the ship. Like, good God. So there you go.
Well,
There's your sci-fi movie. That movie scared the hell out of me, way more than Killer Klowns from Outer Space did when I was 7.
well, and we talked about this with Jeremy
Clowns still
Dauber.
don't bother me to this day. While watching this movie as a child, clowns don't bother me, but that movie creeped me the hell out.
Well, for the longest time, dinosaurs bothered me because the fact that I randomly saw Jurassic Park on the TV, and I was like,
Yeah.
holy shit, I'm scared. You know, so here's the deal: is that horror is one of those weird. It's like we talked about this, and that's why Jeremy Dauber kind of basically said he's writing a book about what scares us, not basically something that's in the horror genre, because the horror genre is so massive, and there's subgenres to it and all that stuff. Just like things like, but the idea is that like just because something's scary doesn't make it a horror movie, and just because something's a horror movie doesn't make it particularly scary, if that makes any sense. Like, horror is like it's also more weird in the book market, I think. Taylor and I, my wife and I, were talking about this weekend. We stopped by Bull Moose to pick up some books and stuff, and one of the things it is that there's a mystery thriller section, and then there's a horror section, and there's
my wife
literally
reads a lot
copies,
of the mystery thrillers,
but there's a copy of books in both spots. Like, I saw like a Josh Mallerman who wrote the book Bird Box, which was made into a movie on Netflix. His Bird Box was like in horror, but it was also in mystery, and that could potentially be because Bull Moose is like just like throwing shit on the shelves. It's possible. I didn't go to like,
it's possible. Bookstore. But no, I think you definitely have a crossover there between your because I have a hard time sometimes when my wife is looking for a book and I go look and I'm like, well, where am I looking for this? Because the books she reads are potentially just in like your fictional drama stuff, but they could be in your suspenseful thriller, because usually she has some sort of mystery going on, some sort of murder going on, you know, different, any of these ones where the person has become obsessed with somebody and then tries to like relive their lives, or, you know, take over their things. And I think that kind of suspense is definitely on the edge of your seat. What the hell is the one with Ben Affleck and the crazy girl he was married to? Gone Girl. Man, was that like, that gets you. The fact that she's nuts and like ruined his life.
It's an awesome book, but it's an unbelievable adaptation in my opinion. They made it because it was a book great. First, but
Liz read the book and really liked the book, and that's why we watched the movie. And it was fantastic. That one roped me into it. And it was another movie that she's like, I want to watch this, and I had no idea what I was getting into. So
I'm just trying to figure out why she was trying to screw over Batman. I just don't understand that part. Like, why would you do that? It's the same thing. I didn't realize Batman was an actual serial killer too, like an American Psycho. American Psycho, Batman kills people in his living room.
That's why he becomes Batman for trying to.
I thought Batman doesn't kill people though.
Well, that's why he's trying to make up for everything he'd done.
Okay, so he's trying to make up for his past, and so he's wearing this suit where if you just shoot him in the mouth, he'll die. So we're not going to go on a tangent about. I still think we should do an episode one of these days about like how to kill, how stupid some of these things are, and make fun of things that we love being like that same thing. Like, why wouldn't you just shoot him in the mouth? Why wouldn't you just kill Joker? Like, why do you continue?
Just kill the Joker. Just kill the Joker. But most of Batman's problems would be cleared up.
Arrest him in a state with capital punishment and just kill him. And do it legally. Do it by the law, but just do it.
By the law.
So, done.
Yeah. Then you can go to bed at night. You can feel fine.
But that's another one that could be potentially. Here's the deal: a Long Halloween real movie, like an actual like real life movie in the horror genre, and making it like creepy and scary and all that stuff would be a dope. I'd love to see some of these ones. Or I've always mentioned about the MCU, which is like they've done a good job in my opinion. This is obviously as a Marvel zombie here, but like is the idea that they've done comedies and they've done serious dramas and they've done action movies. They do subgenres in their genre.
They did their own like old school black and white horror style with
I would love a actual like I'd love to do like a movie with like it's Mephisto, but it's like a horror movie at the core. I mean, obviously the new Doctor Strange movie was pseudo horror because also
that was very
Sam Raimi made it
horror closer.
But like I'd love to see one where it's like, no, this is straight up horror movie. Like this is an R-rated horror movie. This is for adults. This is for Halloween. Like this is like what we're
The Batman was very close to horror. They got all of the creepy aspects of what Batman is and what Batman deals with. They still had all the action adventure stuff in it. But the Riddler in that being a serial killer and like a really horrific serial killer was great. Like really getting into the darkness that Gotham is.
But I want a good one, so that's like it doesn't count. So I didn't actually like the movie. We could actually listen to a review we did with Adam and I did back. I wasn't a big fan of the movie, but that's neither here nor there. It's not, and it has nothing to do with DC because I do like the Dark Knight and all that stuff. So let's just leave it at that. But this movie is great. So I think it's funny about this movie.
Movie's
so,
great.
77%. The critics gave this a 77% out of 100 on.
That's shocking.
Amazing. 60% audience score, which is not always the thing to
I'm
think
surprised
about.
The audience score is lower than
It's
than
honestly
I would have thought.
99% of the time it is the opposite. It's 99% of the time it is the opposite. So 6.2 on IMDb, which means it's more like 62% out of 100, if that makes any sense to people. So that's pretty good. It's a cult classic movie. It's available on it's a free available too, right? It's available on
it's on
Tubi?
Freevee. Is that what it's called?
Freevee.
Yeah, it's on Freevee. I started it on there because I didn't want to go find my copy, and then I was annoyed with the commercials, so I went and found my copy. Took me a while. I found it.
Watch it on there. You can watch it on. I think you can buy it on Amazon Prime Video too. I think you can get it on there too. But it's one of those ones. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if you went to a place like Bull Moose Music here in New England, or any Newbury Comics.
Oh, I'm sure it's on the shelf.
Any that has dealerships that sell or movie people who sell used. You might be able to go to freaking Goodwill and find it in a bin for 50 cents.
Get your VCR out, get your VHS copy, and do it right.
I feel like we should watch something like. I feel like if we ever rewatch the 1990s like TMNT movies, we feel like we should like force ourselves to sit there and watch it on like a CRT old tube TV and like.
I mean, those movies look like they look better. Although Turtles didn't the TMNT 1 didn't age badly. TMNT 2 wasn't really good when it came out, and it certainly did not age well. But the first Turtle movie, I feel like, still did. Yeah, Secret of the Ooze was.
Yeah. But it was great. I am going to give it. And this is here's your thing. I am going to give it 2 stars, and that's mainly because it's.
I would go so. I don't.
You can go higher. But I'm not going to say.
I'd go 3. I'd go 3 on this.
Okay.
It's fun. Like, it's a fun movie. If you want,
it is
for enjoyment, goofy, stupid fun. It is. It hits its marks. It is what. It is exactly what it's supposed to be. It's advertised properly as a just goofy movie, and it's fun and goofy.
They sell a Funko Pop.
If it was trying to take itself seriously, if this was supposed to be a jump scare, serious horror movie, it would be a total flop. But it's not. So it's great.
Did you know there's a Funko Pop for these?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I actually was going to start collecting the Funko Pops of these.
Oh, come on.
And decided that was a bad rabbit hole to go down.
Okay. I'm trying to find my movie. I forgot to get my
I almost think there's like some high quality like action figures or statues of them too, of the clowns.
Yes, I think there is too.
Yeah, I'm
not
pretty
gonna
sure
read any big reviews in these, but I'm gonna read headlines. So we got skip this one, someone said, with 1 star.
Loser. Oh.
Here you go. Well, 1 star. Well, I guess it's a cult following because this stinks. The movie is really bad. I guess try if you want, but to laugh at how bad it is. Waste of time. Profoundly awful.
I mean, maybe I love it because I saw it as a kid. Like,
yes.
Maybe that's it. Maybe I've got my childhood nostalgia on.
See, and the one thing I'm going to pull into this conversation here is the bad thing about reviews on Amazon is that it's got a 4-point-something% because it's like also reviewing the actual quality of a movie being sent to you, not just watching the movie, or like the streaming quality, not the actual quality of the actual film you're watching.
1 star, USPS lost it.
Yeah, 1 star.
Oh, it came broken.
Play. Yeah, so but also 5 stars. I got my package, I loved it, and I'm just doing a review about it. Like, it's not like you're not reviewing the actual movie itself.
It's not actually the review of the movie.
The benefit of like books on Amazon is if you go to like type in Clown in the Cornfield, there's a rating, which is like 4.5 stars, and then there's the Goodreads one, which is their like side company that they own that you can rate books on.
Right, that's where you
so that's the one you want to look at.
Yeah. That way,
so
you don't
honestly, in the future, what I should do is look up Letterboxd, because Letterboxd has reviews from customers reviewing the actual movie, not the Amazon reviews. And there are probably some good ones on it. I just have always like, I followed a Twitter account once called like Amazon Reviews, and it was all these stupid things that were like saying stupid things about movies that like, I don't know, what was it? Bowling for Columbine. You know, the movie Bowling for Columbine?
Oh, yeah.
There was no bowling in this movie at all. And it was just like, that's kind of funny because it's not, but
it's not what it is, folks.
Okay, so we got 2 stars, 3 stars, which puts it out at 2.5 stars. We'll leave it at that. That's good. It's watchable. Definitely one of those movies that like some of the other movies you watch, I'll be like, just don't even watch them. This is one that I do think you should watch.
We've reviewed so far.
Yes, it's one of those ones that is going to be up there for that for sure.
Of all of these, of all the new stuff I've been reviewing with you, this would be the best one.
This is up there.
Yeah.
We got 2 minutes to finish this up. Not really. I just want to finish this up. So that's a great review. Yeah. Awesome. All the other Horror Week content is available at capesandtights.com/horror week. We've got interviews. We've got more podcasts. We've got reviews on books and comics and all that stuff. We've got what else? Like top 10 lists of horror books and horror comics and horror Stephen King books, horror movies, all that stuff. Check that out. But this is actually past the time where we're able to announce, and we'll just talk a little bit about this. We'll do a little preview to those people who waved through listening to us babble on about Killer Klowns from outer space.
And about random other horror movie topics.
Galactic Comics and Collectibles and Capes and Tights podcast, or capesandtights.com, I should say, are putting out in June 8th of 2024 a one-day only comic book throwback show in Brewer, Maine, for those people who are local to the area or live in New England, Northeast. If you want to fly in from California,
I was gonna say, you want to take a flight, take a flight.
Here's the deal, okay, Paul. We haven't really set a full-on ticket price here, but I will guarantee you email hello@capesandtights.com or galacticcomicsbgr@gmail.com and prove that you are flying here from California, and we'll let you in for free.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Sound good?
Yeah.
If you fly from California, you get a free ticket.
Send us an email. Yep, we'll do that. We'll take care of you on that. No, I am stoked. Galacticon 2024.
Yes, I ran into Bobby at Bull Moose Music yesterday, and he's in. So we have so Galactic Comics. So this is Galacticon. We've been working on this.
We're 3 vendors up already, and we haven't officially announced it.
We're a year into been planning this, basically. Like we've been shooting the shit about it a year ago.
I think we've been bouncing it off,
and then it kind of like dropped off a little bit, and then we came back into it about a month or 2 ago, where we were like, okay, we really got to get this thing going. And we've had some help from some people. We have a committee that we're starting. Our buddy Lance has been very helpful as well. But we're putting this convention on. I want to call it a convention, a show on. It's a comic book event. It's a comic book throwback show, old school
throwback comic show. Yeah.
Anybody who's been a comic book fan for a number of years, big pop culture comic book conventions, there was these comic shows, these one-day shows that happened at the Elks Lodge and all these different places.
Like it's the 90s.
You just walked in there, you came in there, you bought your comics, you found your gems, you found your missing keys, you found your missing, collections or runs that you need. And this is what we're hoping to put on. There's nothing wrong with pop culture conventions nowadays. There's nothing wrong with them. I love them. I tell you right now, I have a stack of movies here that have been signed from people that are in movies that I would love to get growing up. But there's also a place nowadays, even something like San Diego, which was the original big comic book convention, used to be mostly comics. It is now mostly places where people do debut trailers and things like trailers. Don't even have to do with comic book movies anymore. Like I think Indiana Jones had a movie there. It's like that's not even to do with comic books.
Yeah,
there's one of those things. So that not that there's anything wrong with those things at all. I love them. They're great. There's a place for them. There's obviously people going to these things. We just know there's this percentage of people out there that want to go shop for comics. And especially in places like Bangor, Maine, Brewer, Maine, where we're going to have this, that there's you and 1 or 2 other places to buy comics within like half an hour driving radius to us.
Yeah. Yep.
That this gives an opportunity for people to bring their comics to one location. People buy a inexpensive ticket to go in there and just shop for comics from a bunch of different places.
Basically, we're asking you as the attendee to help cover the cost of the building for us to do this in, so that we can get this on for everybody. I am excited. I'm excited to see the reach out to vendors and get some people that are further away, so that if you're local here and you already come to my shop and you already go over to Bobby and you visit the local LCSs here, get you an LCS from far away. Get you one that comes up that's in a couple hours or so out, so that you have another selection of books to look through.
Or someone who sells only online and you don't follow them online. So maybe you could bring them in, you come in, buy some slack. So the hope is to have modern comics. So you'll have your comics books that just came out recently that are maybe hot or missing some items. We'll have dollar bin comics. We'll have vintage comics. We'll have slabbed comics, graded comics, signed comics, graphic novels, trades. All that stuff will be available from multiple different vendors. We'll have a limited number of toys and pops for those people who are into that stuff. We are not inviting and not having into the comic book shops, into the show, people that don't sell these things in a comic book store, meaning that like if you can't find it in a comic book store, it will not likely be there, outside of the possibility of having a few local authors potentially coming, depending on space. Obviously, some of those can't buy those at bookstores, but they're creators, and I feel like they're going to come. In addition to all this, Paul, we're also having the hope that we'll have a number. I'm not going to put a number out there right now, but a number of comic book creators, those people who may write comics, draw comics, letter comics, color comics, or edit comics, will be coming as well. Some from local. So some people may have seen them at local conventions here or their places here in the Bangor area, greater Bangor area, and hopefully some from all over the country as well. And as we grow this to multiple years of this convention, maybe from all over the world, we don't know. But the idea is that if you create comics and you want to sell your stuff here, you can come hopefully buy your books, meet some of your favorite creators, get them signed, maybe take a selfie with them, whatever you want.
Yeah, this would be like, I'm hoping this is the place that you get that opportunity to meet these comic creators. You get to chat with them a little bit. You don't get ushered along because the lines are too long and too busy. And if you spend the day, okay, you got an autograph from your creator you wanted to meet, and you made a loop, and maybe they were free, and you got a chance to speak to them a little bit about your favorite creation of theirs. Because I know, like, I did Fan Expo in Boston, and in the Artist Alley there was great. But I never ever got to a couple of the creators because their lines were just so long. I couldn't go. I did have a few great conversations here and there in the morning with some creators. With like Jay Lee, I got to chat with him for quite a bit. But there was so many people that you didn't get that opportunity. Like there were comic sellers that I didn't really get to look at because their booth was set up in such a high traffic area that I couldn't get into it to take a look at stuff. So this is your old school show that you get to come and dig through long boxes and short boxes and look for those books you want and talk to vendors and make connections. And I'm excited. I can't wait.
I can't wait either. It's going to be so much fun. And it's possible. Basically, it's going to be simple. You buy a cheap, inexpensive ticket. The ticket will basically just get you in the building. So it allows us to pay for the building, to fly some of these people in, and we have to fly in, so on and so forth. You'll have vendor tables there so you can shop for your comics. You can meet your creators, like we mentioned before, get some signed. Like I said, if you want to, and they're a fan of them enough, I'm sure they'll take a selfie with you, so you can have that opportunity as well. And hoping maybe one or two panels in there to talk about comics themselves, not about what movie they're in. So here again, I want to preface this: nothing wrong with comic book pop culture conventions that are out there. Your San Diego's, your New York's.
If it's your jam, it's your jam. Yeah, hell yeah.
However,
if that's your thing, it's great.
I'd like to start paying some respect and some honor to the people who created the things they're making these mass multi-million-dollar movies from. And so that's my biggest thing too. And you go and you meet Robert Downey Jr. Awesome. Love him. Honestly, perfect casting for Iron Man. But what about the people who draw Iron Man? What about the people who, some of these independent movies, Empty Man by Cullen Bunn was a major motion picture. What about Cullen Bunn potentially coming? That would be fun to have him be there, and the guy who actually created it, not the people who acted as the person in the movie. And that's my biggest thing.
The amount of
some
times
of those people.
I mean, Ed Brubaker didn't get anything back for creating the Winter Soldier when the Winter Soldier is now a major part of the MCU. Everyone knows. And they love
and you
it.
get a picture. You pay $50, $100 to get a picture with Sebastian Stan. Again, nothing against that. Great. He has a right to do that. I'm just saying it's nice to potentially have someone
who created this character for you.
Yes, and drew it or wrote it and so on and so forth. So that's our hope. And I'm hoping to get a couple letterers in there. The forgotten people in the comic book industry, in my opinion, is some of the letterers and maybe potential editor of a comic book or so on and so forth. So it's going to be fun. It's a one-day event, like a 10 to 6, one single day event here in Brewer, Maine. So if you live in the New England area, it's just a quick jaunt up here for one day to do this.
It could drive up 95, baby.
Here you go, right? You have a commercial for us now. So it'll be funny. So you can updates will be a Galacticon comicshow.com is where you can find right now. We just have a flyer up there for the event, so you can kind of like put it on your calendar, save the date. But that's where you'll find new updates. You can also follow us on social media. So you just type in Galacticon Comic Show on all your social medias. They should be activated now, so you can actually look at those and so on and so forth, and get them out there and get some more information on there. But yeah, we're excited. Galactic Comics.
I'm willing to bet you'll find links on Capes and Tights and on galacticcomicscollectibles.com and on our social media pages to find all this stuff. And I want to update too. We're going to make sure that we get shout outs for vendors. We have shout outs for the creators that are coming, so that everybody that's coming to this, you can get a nice view of what they have.
There'll be a list of something. There'll be something out there that's telling you what's going to be coming to this thing. So you're going to know what to expect. And if it's not your thing, great, awesome. Go to other ones
Yeah,
that are local
it's not your
areas
thing.
and so on and so forth. Check out other conventions. It's great. But if this is your thing, hopefully we'll have a nice little niche market here to do this for. And again, Paul and I know there's no money in this. This is not for us to actually profit off of this. We're probably going to end up
No.
losing money on this, but
I
that's
was gonna
not
say,
what
if
we're
we
here
don't
for.
lose money, it's a win. That's our goal.
We didn't
Yeah,
start a
if we can-
podcast to
we
talk
can
about
break
comics
even.
and start a comic book shop to make a bunch of money. It's just that you already know that.
No. I did.
If
I did
anybody
not.
knows that,
I did not walk away from a district manager position in a
yes,
multi-billion-dollar corporation to open a comic store to get rich.
yes.
Yeah,
And
here to tell you,
so,
folks.
but
According to
really,
my oldest daughter, I did it for the fame,
yes.
which her definition of fame is obviously.
But it's funny. So
fearless.
one last thing is the fact that I think that we went through this like ebb and flow of the comic book world where like we were forgotten people when we read comic books back in early 2000s in the 1990s, because
I was saying in the 90s, my
before,
childhood.
even before X-Men and all that stuff, it was like when we were
teenage years.
geeks. And then the X-Men kind of gave us a little bit of a bump and people were like, oh, I can legitimize comic books a little bit more. And then it dropped down a little bit more. But then when 2008 happened and Iron Man started coming in the MCU and then the Dark Knight and all those movies started coming out, I think people were like, so, okay, their pop culture is now a cool thing to be. And I think it's great.
Yeah.
And I think we're still up there. But I feel like now what's happening is the source material is starting to wane and that people are focused mostly on the movies.
Getting lost.
And I think that there's a spot for this. And I think there's a lot of people out there who wish, we've talked to people personally. And it's one of the reasons why we did this, both from creators and from fans, that they love to keep on doing these big conventions. They make their money on these things. But it'd be nice to do this one day thing where they can come in and meet fans who are specifically there because there's comics there, not because they want to meet, Joe Schmo from Halloween.
They don't have to pitch themselves to get you interested in it. The people that are there are already interested in it.
Yes, they probably know you. They probably want to be there, and so on and so forth. So June 8th, 2024. Put that on your calendar if you live in the New England area. And again, I'm throwing it out there. I'm going to say 5 people because I don't want to like not have any tickets here. But 5 people, first 5 people.
Like the entire state of Arizona randomly comes to Maine.
The first 5 people who want to come to this convention and actually fly in, because it's also people who are like, I live locally. I just came on vacation. My family lives here.
Yeah.
If you fly in, we'll give you a free ticket.
Look at that.
So check us out. hello@capesandtights.com or Galactic Comics. BGR@gmail.com.
At gmail.com or right on the website. Yeah.
Yes.
We got a link right there too.
Awesome. Great. Watch Killer Klowns. Watch horror movies right now. Happy Halloween.
Love Killer Klowns.
And we're getting into the Christmas season here pretty soon too, so it's just pretty cool.
I was drinking peppermint mocha coffee my wife made this morning because she's already in the Christmas mood. We haven't even gotten
I burped peppermint this morning. Does that make sense? Because I was taking my fish oil and they use peppermint extract in there to help your burps not taste like fish. So every time I burp now, it tastes like I eat a thin mint.
Awesome. You know what? I'll take that over the fish taste. Yeah, 100%. Yes.
And those things are like the size of a freaking
they're
Oreo.
horse pills. Yeah, I got those too.
But yeah,
welcome
so awesome.
to your 40s, folks.
I'm not even in my 40s yet. Screw you.
Yeah,
I'm basically there. My body of a 40-year-old now, right? Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, so check that out. Killer Klowns from Outer Space, 2.5 stars round or average between the two of us. Looking forward to that. Next, we have Batman Returns for
I cannot
Christmas
wait.
season. So we'll do that one next. We're excited for that. So
I've got to go through this. This is another one I'll have to watch and try to really look at the movie and not just watch it from the fact that I was decked out in Batman Returns stuff from head to toe as a kid in the 90s.
And then in January of 2024 comes Generation X.
God.
Thanks, Paul. Sweet. Awesome. I really appreciate you coming on, Paul, and doing this. Galactic Comics and collectibles.com. Social media, obviously find them on social media and visit him if you're in Bangor, Maine, or the area, 547 Hammond Street in Bangor, Maine. As always, Paul's gracious enough to come on here and deal with my shit. I appreciate that. And again,
watch some of these movies.
capesandtights.com/horror week is where you can find all the information about our horror week. And then obviously every Wednesday we release a new podcast episode. So check all those out. I believe next week's episode features Mike Henderson, who was the artist on The Forge and one of our favorites. And one you should read this Halloween season is
God, you must read.
No Better. So thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Justin.